And we see you, and that is the correct translation.
Okay.
Once you reach the phase 2-3 edge, so the tippy top of station, you're going to be headed to with 10, which is back outboard.
Copy, I see it.
Copy, and then we'll like you to fair lead. There should be a handrail right at that P133 intersection at the tippy top. We like you to fair lead your safety tether there just to make sure it stays away from the radiator.
Copy. And is that a rich man?
Say again?
Is that a rich man's fair lead you want?
Negative. It could be a poor man.
Okay. Marcos, EV1 is putting the QFR in, taking a look at these cables. Actually, so they're wire tied to this, or also wire tied to this. This if I just release the width wire tie, be able to move the antenna out of the way.
And Vapor, thank you for the view and those words. We concur with your plan where you're going to untie the cables at the base of the antenna, and that should give you enough room. And Vapor, just because you're working near the antenna, don't translate on the C2V2 boom. We've got the retro reflectors, and do not touch the glass. Don't touch the radome paint on the actual antennas. And then for the electrical cables, you want to ensure that you avoid the radii of less than 6 inches.
Yep.
And we see you working the APFR. Once that's secure and you think it's out of the way, you could head aft to the work site.
It's the station 2, there was no joy. Can it try to install the different
checking
cassette that I used for the other step for phase test experiment to see how it's different when it is installed in the position.
And those are good words. The actual settings don't matter as long as they're out of your way.
I just want to see how it just looks different from this cassette.
And this view of NASA astronaut Anne McLean as she is working to install that
yeah, we understand. I think, yes, you have a go to try that.
Thanks, and I know where it is, so I'll get it.
You can see she has the PGT or pistol grip tool attached to her side. This has been utilized quite frequently today during the spacewalk.
I got a good pull twist test on it.
And we copy Ann.
And we are in another handover period between our satellites, but we are getting a view inside Mission Control Houston.
You came in broken. Can you confirm that the locking collar is black on black?
The team in the room today during this Orbit 2 shift is being led by Flight Director Diana Trujillo.
Mission could be depressed, and locking collar is black on black and has a good pole twist test.
And we copy that. So you can head aft to the workstation, and just for both of your essays, we currently don't have a video feed.
Copy.
And for you, I read some of these for Vapor. Just want to repeat because there are a lot of no-touch zones in this area. You want to avoid the dry lube that's on the shaft of the grapple fixture. For the C2V2 boom, don't translate on it, don't kick it, don't touch the glass on the reflectors, and don't touch the radome paint.
Anyone copy?
And then a warning for you, and you have the radiator just to your back, so you want to avoid contact with the radiator. It's got sharp edges, thermal paint, etc.
Copy. Is the preferred translation path right along the radiator?
You can, from the APFR, you can use the diagonal strut that connects, that's on phase 3. That should take you towards the radiator for a second, but then it should take you diagonally down towards Vapor.
Copy. There's no handrails on it.
We agree, we concur. You'll have to use the I-beam.
And with NASA astronaut Anne McLean successfully installing that articulating portable foot restraint, she's now working to translate to P3 ahead of the Common Communication for Visiting Vehicle Relocation task.
And Vapor, can you confirm that you've released the cables from the base of the boom?
Vapor? And there's handrails right on the other side of this guy? Yes. Big long one. And on the other side. Oh, down there.
NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is already in the location of the C2V2 antenna relocation.
Answer station 2 for accept.
What
Good,
speed as they come over? I know if I'm clear.
So this might be an issue with the receptacle size because this cassette
The Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2 antenna, is
Bravo
being
and Charlie, and I
relocated
could
1.5
feel
feet
when
to
the
ensure
connector
better
has been
redundancy in
made.
communication with visiting
However,
spacecraft
on
to
the
the
alpha
International
slot,
Space Station.
I don't feel that. So I guess this cassette is
and
also,
if you need to use your BRT, we've got a handrail
this
for you.
cassette cannot also be installed onto alpha slot. How copy?
You can release.
We copy, and we observed the same thing from the ground. So it's something with the alpha receptacle copy.
Got on it? Yeah, hold on to me.
So I don't know if it makes any change, but if we could, I'm not sure. So if we could swap the receptacle size, I don't know if it's possible or not, but I'll let you guys think about it.
Copy all that. That's great data that you got us there. So we'll have to think about this and schedule something in the future. So I think we can wrap up and put stuff away for today. Thank you.
So I'll put away all stowage and hopefully you
And
guys
we are
can
getting some views
come
of
up with
the Earth as the International Space
good
Station
ideas.
flies 268
I'm happy to
statute
help
miles
you
over
guys
Argentina.
even on Monday, so
Okay.
let me know.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, thank you for that. We copy all. If you wouldn't mind, could you grab a photo of that receptacle just so we could see A versus B
This
maybe?
view showing NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers on the right of your screen
Sure.
and Ann McLean
I'll
on the left,
put
working
those
together
pictures
to relocate
on
that common
SSC 7
communications for
shortly.
visiting vehicles antenna.
Copy, thank you.
See it? Stop, there. Looks like it's a cross deck. Might work better from the other side, or I can try to come in from this side. There you go, nice job.
Nicely done, Vapor. And we're going to have you tend the boom and kind of head inboard, and then Vapor, you'll be grabbing the WIFX from your BRT.
And as you can tell on your screen, Ann McLean is holding that boom. They did successfully remove it from its current location. They're going to be moving it 1.5 feet over.
Vapor, it'll be a pitch setting of alpha.
Yeah, I've got alpha set.
Copy. Alpha clocking is going to be 3, which is just pointing towards Ann in the same with 17. And extension of 1, which looks like you already have.
Paper. We're clocking a 3 pixel and foot test. The locking color is black on black.
All right, that's great, Vapor. Next is going to be to install the C2V2 on the WIFX.
Cool. So this, I might need you to help push it. There's, I think some of the cable is pulling it back your way. Yeah, actually, so it's pretty strong. Now that we're here, I'm going to have to release. Yeah, it's just, it won't.
If you're just joining us this morning, we are 3 hours and 21 minutes into the 275th spacewalk in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. NASA astronauts Ann McLean on the left of your screen and Nicole Ayers on the right of your screen are currently working to relocate a common communications for visiting vehicle antenna.
Pointed aft, which looks like it is.
By moving the antenna over 1.5 feet, it will ensure better redundancy for visiting spacecraft arriving to the International Space Station.
Wire time might be causing some friction.
Prior to this, McLean and Ayers worked to complete the lower right strut installation on the mod kit. Given the higher priority of the C2V2 relocation task, the team stopped the work on the mod kit, cleaned up the IROSA work site, and is now moving on to the relocation task you see here.
All right. I think the black line is facing aft, 90 degrees from the center black line. Concur.
Copy orientation, copy pull and twist test, and then I may have missed it, but just the black on black.
Black on black. That was the base of the, this was, or the, okay. I know it was the wires. We're working on the wires, so they're not moving. You got a full twist on the whip extender, right? I did, yep. All right, I'm going to release your rat. And I'm going to release my wrench.
All right, next will be to recoil the cables and secure them with wire tie. Right now we have handrail 3829, which is just beneath WIF 17, but Vapor and Ann, if you see a better place, we're open.
I could do maybe one coil at 3829. There's also a wire tie right at the base of the antenna that I could put another twist in and get the rest of this coil down. Yeah, that's the original coil that I undid. Oh, okay. Yeah. So just put it back here? Yeah. If you do that, I'll tidy this one up.
McLean and Ayers are now working to recoil cables and secure them with wire ties following the relocation of the C2V2 antenna.
And then there will be 1 to 2 coils at 3829 as well.
Copy that, Vapor, thanks.
All right, that's in.
Yeah, 2 minutes until handover.
Copy.
Once that's complete, we'll get a glove and hap check from the both of you.
Right, UB1 has a good glove check on the left and a good glove check on the right. The spot's getting worn a little bit, but it doesn't look any more severe than it has been. And I have. And there's no change to the glove. Use your eye hat.
And we did just hear a good glove and hap or helmet absorption pad check from both McLean and Ayers. These checks are done periodically throughout spacewalks to ensure everything is looking as expected. We are in another loss of signal period. While we will have communications with the crew, we will not have video of them again for about 36 minutes. Now approaching the 3-hour and 30-minute mark in today's spacewalk.
And we're just back with you after a 20-second handover.
Great,
we'll get you some words here in about 30 seconds.
Copy. Copy our glove and hap check.
And in Vapor, we're still discussing. We'll get back to you.
Okay, copy.
And following the successful relocation of the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles antenna, the team on the ground is discussing next steps for NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, who are nearing the 3-hour and 30-minute mark of today's spacewalk.
All right, and in Vapor, we have some big picture words for you. Vapor, you're going to be going back to the work site, and you're going to be going back to the APFR and then translating inboard to the port feeder cart. And we'll continue to get you more words. We just want to get you moving.
Okay, sounds good. Copy.
And Vapor, you'll be translating to the cable bag where we will have more words for you. And I'm assuming you've started, but you'll be headed to the APFR and WIF 10, putting that on your BRT, and then picking up your green hook.
Okay. Copy.
And just for the both of you, we are in a KU loss of signal for the next about 30 minutes, so we do not have video.
V1 copies. Okay.
You're looking at a live view of Mission Control Houston as we are 3 hours and 32 minutes into today's spacewalk. This is the 275th spacewalk in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers have successfully built the upper triangle portion of the modification kit ahead of upcoming future International Space Station rollout solar array installation. Additionally, they have successfully relocated the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle antenna. At this point, the team on the ground is discussing next steps for cleanup tasks for McClain and Ayers to complete.
You're going to translate port to the cedar cart, but first you're going to pick up your green hook, just nadir of the FHRC. Pick up your green hook. In vapor, we're going to want you to translate to the strut bag. Very generically, we want you to clean it up, so we want it in a config that it's ready to take to the airlock. Just obviously ensure that it is still strapped down to the IEA.
Hey, copy. Do you want me to move the free ret to the table bag?
Negative vapor, we'll keep the free rets in the strut bag. Right now, big picture, the intent is to bring both bags into the airlock.
Okay, Marcos, the strut bag is cleaned up and closed, and it still has all three of its tie-downs, all three handrails.
We copy vapor. That's a good config, and we'll have you stand by.
And I'm on phase one. I'm on phase one, heading in toward the port cedar cart.
Are you worried about the hardware here?
Copy that. Port cedar cart with 03, upper left-hand corner.
Copy. Bring up my green hook. After that? All right, my green hook is on my red reel, and I'm continuing translation.
Copy, Ann.
We do have about 24.5 minutes left in this time period where we will not have visuals of the crew, but we do have communications with them. You're looking at a view inside Mission Control Houston that is currently being led, the Orbit 2 team currently being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo.
Hanging out with the table bag, just in case they want to do a jumper or something.
And Vapor, we got words for you. All right, Vapor, if you take a look at the IROSA cables, specifically the bundle that's on the right-hand side, we noticed that the loop is hanging, and we are concerned that if the BGA were to rotate, that loop could get tangled or caught up in that trunnion pin that's on the keel. And so we have some words to have you tie down that bundle onto the lower strut. And so we would like you to translate very slowly at standby. That's just big picture, and we'll give you a final go here in a second, just so you know what's coming.
And those words from Ground Ivy Marcos Barrios up to Nicole Ayers.
But just listen. We're going to be having you most likely very slowly translate up the lower strut. We want you to be parallel with the strut, and we also want you to be on the IEA side. We want you to try and avoid slipping your feet, which could cause torsional loads on this strut. The intent is to tie down the hanging bundle as low as possible on the strut away from the upper triangle.
Okay. Well, if it doesn't work.
Not yet, Vapor. And copy Ann, you're at the port seater cart with 3 upper left-hand corner. It'll be clocking of 6, Papa Papa Hotel 12.
Papa Papa Hotel 12.
And with those words up to NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers discussing the next steps of today's procedures to clean up the IROSA cables.
The handrails on the mod kit are illegal.
Ayers will also work to ensure that the bundle is tied down on the lower strut as a precautionary measure.
That is affirmative, Vapor, just minimize load.
Meanwhile, NASA astronaut Ann McClain is working to install the articulating portable foot restraint in a different location on the International Space Station. We are now 3 hours and 42 minutes into today's spacewalk. McClain and Ayers successfully built and installed the upper triangle of the mass canister of the modification kit, as well as the right struts on the modification kit. Following this, a higher priority task, the antenna relocation for the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, was reprioritized. The duo successfully removed and relocated that antenna.
Big picture word so you visualize it before we move forward. So I want you to locate the upper handrail, so the handrail closest to the solar panels on the lower strut. Right now that bundle should be wire tied to the zenith stanchion, or the uppermost stanchion, and we're going to want you to also have a wire tie on the lower stanchion of that same handrail.
I see that the right upper handrail already has the cable wire tied to it, so you just want me to add a second one to bundle the cable bundle to the bottom handrail.
Those are good words, vapor, and you have a go to proceed.
I have Papa Papa Hotel 12 set, and I'll get it in at a clocking of 6. Is that correct?
Those are good words, Ann.
We do have about 19 minutes remaining in the loss of signal period where we do not have visual of the crew, but as you can hear, we do have communications with them.
Sure, I can reach from handrail to handrail without moving my feet.
At this time, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is back at the modification kit zone, which is the 2A location of the International Space Station.
And the vapor,
she's currently stepping through procedures to clean up some of the cables that were left out following the reprioritization of the C2V2 antenna relocation.
And we copy.
By tying down the bundle on the lower strut portion of the modification kit, this is being done as a precautionary measure.
Then, and once you're done there, we will need you to press the brake pedal release on the port cedar cart as you make your way back to your green hook location.
Copy. And hey, at 6 Papa Papa, if I try to get in a clock at 6, the ingress aid is coming into contact with structure. Can I put it at 7 or 8?
Checking.
Because I was able to make the reach with 2 space feathers. Nice job, Vapor.
That's good news, Vapor. Appreciate it.
And while Ayers continues to work on the cleaning up of those IROSA cables, McLean successfully installed the articulating portable foot restraint.
Marcus, there's a trunnion pin structure, and with the ingress aid, it's retracted, but it's laying down. So I can either kind of set it at a clocking of 7, or I could lift the ingress aid so it was sticking out more toward the MT and put it at a clocking of 6.
I copy your words, and the team is still discussing. And we would like you to yaw the boot plate 180, and we're being told that that should get the ingress aid out of the way.
Okay, yaw at 180. see what you were talking about with the moon earlier, Ann. Oh, yeah? You can see it over the end of the truss, huh? Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Okay, Marcos, we are at a clocking of 6, and we are now at a yaw of 6 also. I have black on black and a good pull twist fit.
Copy that. And if you actuated the pitch axis, just make sure the knob can be depressed.
I checked the knob is locked and it can be depressed.
Copy, good work. And we'll have you start going back starboard, but first we want you to release the brakes on the cedar cart.
Good.
And Ann, I'm going to have you pause. I apologize.
Okay, pausing here.
And Ann, can you confirm that your camera is in the bag, cable bag?
The camera is on me.
So we'd like you to take a picture of the final configuration where you dropped off the APFR.
Marcos, I have the cable bundle on the right lower strut, upper handrail. I'll tie down the boat skin.
Copy. And Vapor, did you use one of your wire ties or was it an existing one?
I used one of my long wire ties off my BRT.
Perfect. Thanks, Vapor. We'll give you more words here. And then Vapor, we'd like a photo of that final config if you could.
Okay. I'm looking at the clearance of the trunnion pins. And then it almost seems like the NZL connectors might need an extra wire tie.
Copy. We appreciate those words, Vapor. Yeah. And copy. We appreciate those. And Vapor, after discussing here on the ground, we don't need you to proceed with tidying up the NZGLs because they're free. We don't believe that they're going to catch with anything, but if you're already complete, that's okay as well.
It's no problem written forward.
Copy, Vapor. We'll get you more words.
Okay, and photos are complete, Marcos.
Was that you, Vapor?
Sorry, EV1, photos are complete.
Copy, photos complete. Release the brakes on the cedar cart. Translate to your green hook location.
And I'm going to translate back down the strut here in order to get the picture.
Copy, Vapor. You can translate to the cable bag and hold.
All right, I have 2 good pumps on the cedar brakes, and I'm translating out phase 1.
We copy and. And in Vapor, just big picture so you're aware. Vapor, you're translating to the cable bag. We'll have you hold, and you're going towards your green hook. We'll eventually have you go to the cable bag as well and hold. Right now we're deciding if we're going to continue with the jumper get ahead or if we're going to finalize cleanup and come back into the airlock.
One copy. 2 copies. Because for USA, I haven't taken pictures of the lower strut cables yet. I was too close when I was there, and now it's too dark probably, so we're going to wait.
We copy you haven't taken the pictures yet. Once sunrise should be in about 14 minutes, and we'll get those done.
Mark us for bad. Did I hear right that we're taking both the bags in?
Firm, right now that is the current plan.
Okay. And at the green hook location.
Copy, and you'll drop your green hook, then head towards the cable bag. We'll just make sure your gauntlets are in place.
Station Huntsville, space to ground 2 for Ann and Elvis.
Okay.
We are now at the 3-hour 58-minute mark of today's spacewalk, and NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers has completed work
we saw
to
the camera was turned on there before we went KULOS a little bit ago. We wanted to get one delta to you today. We wanted to swap the media bags that we're using to a different one, and I've got that information when you're ready.
Please send it.
Okay, the ground teams have seen some optimal growth on the ground samples, so we'd like to switch from the dilution media 1 and
update on the
instead use Corellia 2. So in your procedure, that would be just changing parameters from 2 to parameter 4. So in your G with LSG, we want to get Elvis Media Bag Corellia 2.
And you'll be doing the MMOD cover.
Okay, Elvis Media Bag Corellia 2, and the parameter will be 4.
Copy.
That's a good read.
Good, and I'm kind of waiting until right before KU comes back to retrieve the sample out of Melfi so that when KU comes back, I'll be ready to go with you guys on the LSG.
We are bringing in the...
You are reading our minds. Thank you much.
Airlock. And so all this together puts us at a PET of 610 with that extra margin. And right now, our limiting consumable continues to be the Medox, and it's about a 630, 645, almost 7 now.
I'm picking up the DD for now. And you should be able to get to the forward side of the IEA before you can. Okay. Or maybe you can read. Yeah, I think you can.
And you may have mentioned it, and I missed it. Just ensure that your gauntlets are down prior to crossing the surge. We still don't have video. We'll have it up here maybe in 5 minutes.
Copy. And my green head is on 3652.
Copy, thanks.
Alright, what's your status paper? I am about to start translating. Okay. I will hold at the charge if you haven't translated by. Yeah, let's.
And a Vapor, we have a go for you to start.
He really wants to come with me, but can stay.
2 minutes until teacher's handover. We have a go Vapor for you to get the jumpers, put them on your mini workstation, and start translating for the get ahead, and we'll get those pictures of the lower strut once you're complete with the get ahead.
Copy that. I am sitting now.
And then Vapor, can you just verify that you have the Canon connector tool with the jumper?
I do have the Canon connector tool with me.
I didn't expect anything else. Thanks, Vapor.
Hello. Hi. Make this corner and then out of your way. Sounds good.
And Vapor, my guess is you're doing this, but just to give you words, you'll be translating to your work site via the radiator side of the IEA, so the kind of left mod kit side.
Then what? It's better tachometer. That way it's not quite as big. It is low. It looks fine at the green hooks. I'm going to airlead it here so it's like that again. Okay? I'll take a look at it as I come down.
10 seconds until teacher's handover.
And we do expect to get view of the crew here again shortly. We're 4 hours and 3 minutes into today's spacewalk. Following the relocation of the Common Communication for Visiting Vehicles antenna, there's a couple get-ahead tasks that McLean and Ayers are now going to be working on. NASA astronaut Ann McLean is going to work to remove a bolt on an MMOD cover. MMOD stands for micrometeor or orbital debris. Just going to remove this bolt using the pistol grip tool.
Vapor, I saw it was cut on and got it off. Thank you. Yep.
Meanwhile, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is going to work on a jumper cable installation, which is a DC to DC converter, converting power from the P6 truss to the acceptable voltage for the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
I am back with you. Give me 10 seconds and I'll give you some more words.
I'm going to work a socket swap. If they are 7/16, right?
A-firm, 7/16 by 6-inch wobble.
Copy. I will work a socket swap.
And this is a helmet cam from NASA astronaut Ann McLean as she works to translate to the P4 MMOD cover to remove that bolt.
Copy, Vapor. That's the correct location. Just want to give another big picture for both of you, Ann and Vapor. Vapor's working the jumper cable get-ahead, and we're going to have you work the MMOD cover, and we might call you off when Vapor is complete with her get-ahead. So we may not complete the MMOD cover, but right now the intent is to finish the jumper.
Okay, did you want me to not do the socket swap and go do like the push test on it so we get some data out of it?
And we prefer the socket swap right now, and then continue to get the data.
Copy, and work.
And Vapor, I'm back with you. You're at the correct location. I heard 158 and 157, and next for you is to tether to those dummy caps.
Okay. And I'm going to tether one at a time. I have one free in.
Copy that. Recommend copy.
The order matters.
Order matters for ease of install, so we would recommend 158 first.
I'm 3258 cap.
Copy the 158 cap. After that, you'll install the Cannon connector tool onto 158. There should be a white...
Cannon connector tool installed to the...
Yeah, and I think I heard that the Cannon connector tool is installed to the Cannon connector itself.
It's installed to the Cannon connector cap to release first.
And you have a go. Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise.
And this view on your screen of NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers' helmet camera as she works to complete a get-ahead task to install a jumper cable, which is a DC to DC converter, converting power from the P6 truss to an acceptable voltage for the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
I just wanted to double check. I'm about to go into the Melfi to retrieve the sample, and I just wanted to triple check that I heard you correctly. I'm going to be retrieving the Elvis Media Bag Colwellia 2 Charlie 2, which is barcode 00292322 uniform. Is that correct?
That's a good read-in. That's the one.
Marcus, I have a 7/16 swallow socket.
Copy. Putting that in work now. And are we going to be jumping over to 3 or 4 for the ops?
And copy. And next will be
and we'll take you up on that. We'll take space to ground 3.
Relocation, and let me know if you need words.
Okay, I'll go retrieve the media bag, and I will meet the team on 3 at the LSG here in a couple minutes.
Options if you
Copy.
want to run them. I know we can come down the inside and then translate out. And that there's not a lot of handrails, if I remember.
We concur. So an option is to go Zenith.
And here we are getting a view of both NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the left from her helmet camera and Nicole Ayers on the right as they both work to complete their respective get-ahead tasks. Anne McClain is working to remove a bolt on a micrometeoroid orbital debris area.
I have kitchen studio my den.
She is going to use the PGT or pistol grip tool to complete that task.
Copy that.
Meanwhile, Nicole Ayers on the right is working with a Canon connector tool that you see there in the center of her screen. She'll use this to mate the new jumper connections, which will convert power from the P6 truss to an acceptable voltage for the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
Okay, so I have visual on bolt 3. These things go outboard of the trunnion pin, Marcos?
Say that one more time.
There's a structure with a trunnion pin. Is your recommendation to translate outboard of that?
And right now, we're being told that the recommendation is to first go inboard along the edge of the IEA, then go zenith, so it's in between the SARG and the IEA, and then go outboard towards the Bolt 3 location, which is more or less midway.
So I was just able to come across shield fingertip to fingertip. Got it.
And that works for us, Ann.
And we are getting a view there of NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, who is working on that jumper cable installation.
And we copy. And then just a note for you, Ann, that the bolts will pop up when they are fully released.
Okay, and so I'm ready for my Bolt 3 action.
Well, first we'll have you get stable, so BRT to handrail close by. We've got 5124, and we're going to perform the cover rigidity test.
Okay.
And it's a 5125.
5125 on there. Marcos, I've got the P158 mated to J158. Good full test, and it's white on black.
And we copy Vapor. You have a go to continue with 157.
Okay, Marcos, I am BRT'd to 5125. I have a hand in the middle of the shield.
And Ayers is working to mate those new jumper connectors.
Ready for you to press inward on the MMOD covered. So center between the micro squares like you have between the rivet lines. And then we'll ask you to describe the reaction.
Okay, let me go a little bit more if I'm going to get centered on those rivets.
Copy. And then,
so Marcus, I don't see any obvious motion.
Copy, no obvious motion.
I kind of pressed down on it and it didn't move, and then I kind of keep my hand on it and try to import a push force, and there's no noticeable motion to me.
Copy, push force as well as hand on it and no noticeable motion.
Now, the one thing I do notice, if I press toward the outboard, like 6 inches along the edges, it's solid. If I kind of push in the middle, I feel like a kind of a vibrating that comes. It's not actually moving. It just feels like there's a vibration that goes through it.
We copy. Would you say like a high frequency vibration?
I would describe it as such, yes.
And copy N, appreciate those words. We're checking. We'll have you stand by.
Stand by.
And Vapor, just as a reminder, because I did not give it to you, on the demated Canon connectors, we don't want you to rotate the collar or manipulate the cable or the connector using the collar or the connector tool.
And the hook on the in connector cap, interfering with taking it off, so I'm swapping over to one of my rats. Leave some room here.
Vapor, we copy it. You have a go, and Vapor, we have video back.
And NASA astronaut Ann McLean is working through procedures to inspect the MMOD cover. She reported out her findings to the team here on the ground, who are discussing.
And we're still waiting on.
Meanwhile, Nicole Ayers on the right continues work to install the jumper cables.
All right, and
Marcus, the DDC per cable has quite a bit of memory in it, so it's not going to lay flat like the picture had. It's kind of going to go up and around. You can see that in my head or not. So.
And Vapor, we have a good view on your HECA. We see it, and we might need to use a wire tie to secure that. After the installation. And we have a... Copy, Vapor. You have a go to install. And we have a go to proceed with you. So first is going to be to inspect the base of the Bolt 3 microsquare, and we're going to be inspecting for FOD or debris.
I see no FOD or debris on the inside of that bolt anywhere.
Ann Ayers has successfully mated one set of the jumper connectors. She's now working on the second.
Level 2, counter 2.
Meanwhile, NASA astronaut Ann McLean on the left of your screen is going to utilize the pistol grip tool for the next set of procedures for the bolt release.
And copy vapor.
She's now working
and
on
we're
the
discussing whether or not we
pistol
need
grip.
to tie down that jumper.
For your essay, there's not a whole lot of places I could go to the handrail 5243. That.
And vapor, we like that location.
I'll put a wire tie on 5246.
And following mating the second set of jumper cables, AIRS is going to now secure that cord that you see on your screen with a wire tied to ensure it's not floating about.
Exactly 2 turns, and we'll want a torque readout.
Copy, exactly. Okay, I have Bravo 2, counter 2 set. Understand exactly 2 turns. There's exactly 2 turns on bolt 3. It did not release.
Copy 2 turns, and we'll get your torque reading. And
torque was 0.5.
Copy. All right, copy. And the bolt 3 did not fully release. We're going to be translating to bolt 4, which should just be inboard of bolt 3. Once you're at bolt 4, we'll just have you reset either the torque or the speed collar just so that you can clear the torque reading from your PGT.
Okay. Good.
McLean now translating to another bolt location. The bolt she was previously on, bolt 3, did not release following the pistol grip tool attempt.
All right, I see bolt 4.
Copy bolt 4. We'll have you inspect the base of bolt 4 for FOD and debris as well.
Okay. I also see no debris of FOD in bolt 4.
Copy, and we'll have you reset the torque or speed collar just so that we get accurate torque reading. And we're going to have you release bolt 4 approximately 9 turns, and it should be popping out.
9 turns.
And this view of NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers as she works to secure that cable there with a wire tie following the successful mating and connection of jumper cables to provide power from the P6 truss to an acceptable voltage for the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
Reset the collar.
Meanwhile, NASA astronaut Ann McLean is working on removing a bolt on an MMOD cover.
Copy, Bravo 2, counter 2, approximately 9 turns. Bolt should pop out, and
Of course. Okay, I've got the wire time. 243.
Feel free to call Johnny.
and 6.0 on torque. We'll have you translate to bolt 1.
Bolt 1.
Which should be just...
Back out just to get my safety tether straight. Just for ED2, I've got both adjustables, both Cannon connector caps, and the tool all on my mini.
Copy, Vapor. You can start translating back towards the cable bag.
And with that, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is going to make her way back to the cable bag following the successful installation of the DDCU jumper cable, which will provide power from the P6 truss to an acceptable voltage to the Russian segment of the space station.
Coming back in. Bolt 1.
Copy, Vapor. You're going to be putting all of that equipment inside the cable bag.
Sorry, that was sorry. We've been told we sound alike. Yep. And we're both heading toward the cable bag. I've got a in my hecka of the mod kit cables, I think. You guys can see that.
We do, Vapor. We also have Johnny helping us out with a camera from the GEM, getting a really good view of the IROSA cables.
Awesome. Tell them hi for us. Oh, we could wave at them from here. Yeah. Okay, I'm at bolt 1.
And we are getting a view here of the installation that was completed earlier today of the modification kit. You see the upper triangle that was built and successfully attached to the mass canister, as well as the right struts.
And you'll be releasing bolt 1 exactly 2 turns.
At this point, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is translating back over to that area to pick up a bag that will be going back with them inside of the airlock today.
Vapor, once you have put the tools and the caps inside the cable bag, we'll have you do another assessment on the IROSA cables and see if you believe that they would be a snag hazard to the keel pin that's on the IAA.
Okay, copy that. I'm going to hold at the inboard radiator side of the IEA just because our safety tethers already have one up in them, and I don't want to do it.
And we copy. Thanks, Vapor.
Right, I have counter 2, there's Bravo 2, counter 2 set, and a little bit of a tough reach.
Copy, Bravo 2, counter 2. You'll release bolt 1 exactly 2 turns after resetting the collar.
In 2 turns, you said.
A-firm.
It's easy. While I'm hanging out here, my gloves, there's no change. Pistol set. That was
Copy, no changes to your glove and hat.
If you're just joining us this morning, we are 4 hours and 28 minutes into today's spacewalk. NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers successfully built and installed a support bracket called a Modification kit on the 2A location of the International Space Station. The crew also worked to relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2 antenna, to ensure better redundancy in communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. Following this, jumper cables were connected to route power from P6 to the Russian portion of the International Space Station. And at this time, NASA astronaut Anne McClain is working on removing bolts from a micrometeoroid orbital debris cover.
And I got 2 turns on it. Elbow 2, counter 2, and they see the torque. Torque was 9.5. It felt higher.
Copy, 2 turns, torque of 9.5. We're going to have you translate to bolt 2. And it'll be similar. You'll inspect the microsquare for fodder debris, and then we'll have you reset the collar.
Copy. All right, vapor, I got to check them out. No worries, Marcus, for you guys to say I'm going to see the A-frame here. I can get a good view of the cables while I wait.
Appreciate that, Vapor.
Marcos, you said bolt 2, right? Our last bolt?
A-firm, bolt 2 is the last bolt. You would just be heading outboard from bolt 1.
Okay, I'm there, and it is 3 of 5, and I've reset the collar.
Copy. With the same settings of Bravo 2, counter 2, you're going to release bolt 2 exactly 2 turns.
Copy, exactly 2.
Anne McClain now working to remove the last bolt on this cover.
Okay, I have 2 turns on bolt 2. Running torque was 4.8.
2 turns, 4.8. Copy, Anne.
Good.
And you can appreciate the work on that get ahead. We can have you stow the PGT and do a glove and hap check for us.
Copy. Does appear to be no change. And dry hap.
Copy, and after you've stowed your PGT, we'd actually like to do the cover rigidity test again, and so we'd have you translate to bolt 3.
Okay, can I do it from the zenith side instead, since it's kind of in the center?
A-firm, and those are good words. You can do it from there.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Bolt bit of a tricky translation. Okay, I am there.
Copy, Ann. Let me give Vapor some words here. Vapor, so we have looked at the Arosa cables, and we would like the end configuration to look like the following. We want both bundles as well as where the NZGLs are. We want those in a more flat configuration and more kind of parallel to the mounting bracket.
Yeah, I'm saying what you guys are saying. They're all breaking the plane of the keel fin.
A-firm, that's exactly our concern.
I understand the issue. Yeah. You might be able to just translate here over there. That way I can...
And Vapor, just as a reminder, you can translate on the lower right strut, given the instructions we said before, parallel to it, very slowly, avoid torsions, but you will not be translating on the mounting bracket.
Copy.
And 2 minutes for Tidra's handover. And we are back with you.
And with those words, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is going to work to reconfigure cables that were previously secured there to the mounting bracket on the lower left of your screen. They're going to make them just a little bit more flush, not sticking out quite as much.
I guess in a little bit of a different spot, I get a little bit of a vibration. Yeah, if I go more inboard, I still get the vibration. If I'm right on where the double sets of rivets are in the center, I do not. And the rivets is where I got it before. Now it's a little bit inboard. Makes sense?
And we copy all. That's a good description, and we are complete with this get ahead.
Okay. Is there anything I can do to help? Kind of a one-person job. I'm not this stressed. Yeah. If I can get through here.
And we're discussing.
And NASA astronaut Ann McLean successfully removed bolts from that MMOD cover and inspected it, completing that get-ahead task. And we are in a brief handover period between our satellites, but we'll regain views here shortly.
And as Vapor completes that task, we're just discussing here what our follow-on plans are. So we'll have words for you here shortly.
Copy. It looks like if you take that bundle that's to your left and just do one more loop on the... Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering the ones on the bracket look like they'll be clear.
And now, 4 hours and 40 minutes into today's spacewalk, NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers successfully completed the lower right strut installation and build of the triangle, which was the minimum configuration for the mod kit for today. Following this, they worked to relocate a common communications for visiting vehicles antenna, completed 2 get-ahead tasks, including a P6 DDCU jumper cable connection, as well as removing bolts from an MMOD cover. At this point, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers is working to reconfigure cables for future IROSA preparation spacewalks.
All right. And in Vapor, so big picture words, once Vapor is complete with this tie down, we're going to have her take the Canon connector tool, the caps, etc., to the cable bag. And we're going to have you just, we know Vapor already did this, we're just going to have you take a look at the strut bag and make sure that it's cinched up and ready to be taken back to the airlock. Once the cleanup is complete, Vapor, we're going to have you bring the strut bag in, and you're going to be bringing the cable bag in, and you're going to be leading the way back, and we're going to keep you two together.
Okay. Yeah, I think the cable bag, the strut bag looks good. For your caps, we can either do them in a cable bag or the strut bag. The problem is I need to leave before you come back around with your feathers. Yeah. So I think maybe if you're okay with it, Marcos, if you could shove those caps in the strut bag, and she doesn't have to wait. We don't have to do kind of the back and forth, if that makes sense.
And we're good with that plan, Ann. Thanks.
Okay. Chris, did you happen to hear my question about an adjustable out here for these cables? I think he's just donating another to get the cables up against the bracket might be the best.
No, Vapor, I did not catch your question. Are you asking if you can use an adjustable to further tidy up the cables and leave it out?
Sure.
We're checking, and while we're checking, Ann, can we have you turn your HECA back on?
Yep. Great. Right.
Now, Vapor, question for you. We're discussing if we can bring the cables back with us in the cable bag, but in order to do that, we need to make sure that you can actually reach the mounting bracket oval cutout where they're attached.
I can reach it.
All right, Vapor, then the plan is to release the IROSA cable bundles from the mounting bracket, and we're going to be putting them back in the cable bag.
Copy that. We'll put them in work. Right.
And following discussion here on the ground, the team has decided to bring that cable back inside the crew lock bag, inside the airlock today.
And we copy Ann.
I'm on a risk here. Let's see. I've got one. I'm ready to the adjustable that has the airtime done from the mount. Yes. Just talking this out loud, Marco, so you guys can back me up here.
Appreciate it.
The left cable is released from the on the wire ties on both skins. Right.
Good work, Vapor.
Nicely done. So do you want me to leave the wire ties on the handrail?
A-firm.
They each have 3 twists on the stanchion.
That's correct, Vapor.
Yeah. And actually, if you have a free hand, I might ask you to come to the base of the strut and just take these cables off of me. Do what, sorry? And grab these cables from me so I can... Oh, yeah. Hold on, let me come back upward. But I don't want Medusa on me while I'm trying to get that base again. Yeah, for sure. Might be right away. On the way. Marcus, there is a short wire tie on the pin that's closest to the mounting bracket. Long wire tie just to the stop bolt.
And NASA astronaut Ann McLean is making her way over to Nicole Ayers to assist with that cable gathering and putting it in the bag to bring it back into the airlock today.
Right, I'm coming up behind you. Okay. I'm going to try to make real quick and then I'll hit him. Right, I see him.
Also, right above Ann McLean, she is the astronaut with the red stripes. On the left of your screen is that strut bag that will also be going back inside with the duo this afternoon.
Right here. Right, I'm ready to the cables. Okay. They're not the prettiest, but they're... That was a fantastic grab.
And Ann and Vapor, just for your awareness, Vapor, it seems like your safety tether is wrapped around that trunnion pin on the keel. Just for awareness.
Vapor, yeah. I'm going to go back that way.
Copy that.
For the heads up, Marcus. Yep, and I'll need to get this bag and go before you come around the corner. Okay. It'll take me a little while to get back. So. Yeah, it'll take me a sec to get these cables in the bag. And can you just take a look at my safety tether? I've lost where it is. Yeah, it's coming down your left side and then around the training pin. Okay. So I think if you... left. Yeah. See? And I can get better eyes on it in just a sec. Got it. I'll get it. Got it? That's good. Thank you. I'm back at the cable bag. I'm going to work on loading these up.
We copy in.
Go the long way around right back to the strip head.